Welcome into Press Box Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles, and with me is the managing editor of Press Box and PressBoxOnline.com on this Monday. And as we warm up, getting ready for our usual Monday talks with Ross Grimsley, we're going to get through spring training, doing a lot more stuff. Luke and I will both be down in Sarasota around the 6th of March. I'll be there through the 15th. I think Luke's getting down the 8th and is there through the 15th. We'll have a lot to tell you about from down there, and we'll start previewing that a little bit next week when we have an interview next Monday with Josh Hauser, the head coach of Howard County Community, Harford Community College. Tell us a little bit about why you wanted to get him on.
Well, I stopped by HCC's Spring Media Day a few weeks ago to work on a lacrosse story, which people will see in the new issue of Press Box, which is out on Wednesday. And I got to talking about with the baseball coach, and we were talking about the technology they have and how it's different from like Division I schools and how their rosters turn over. And I said, you know what? We should have you on our baseball show. And so we'll talk to him about the JUCO baseball landscape and how his team's looking this year.
All right, sounds good. When you first told me you went out to Hartford Community College and met with him, I thought maybe you had some eligibility left and we're going to try and pitch for him. No,
I don't think he's interested in my fastball
okay.
personally. Ross Grimsley's yes. I think Ross can still pitch, but not me.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. We're on to today just to shoot the breeze about the Orioles offseason now that it appears most likely complete. And Luke, the first thing is, I wrote a piece because you edited, and it's out online at PressBoxOnline.com. Before we really dig into the Orioles, their road to both making the playoffs or winning the division got a little tougher over the weekend, didn't it?
Yeah, as you mentioned in your column, the Red Sox and owner John Henry are back. And they had a really good offseason. They made a bold trade for Garrett Crochet. They gave up good
Yeah.
package of prospects to get him. But we saw how good Garrett Crochet was last year with the White Sox. Of course, he didn't really start for the full year. He kind of did, but he was throwing 2 or 3 inning outings by the end of the year. But he should be fully good to go as a full-blown starter this year. And we saw how electric he was last year. And then they made some other moves like Walker Buehler.
On a 1 year, you can't lose on a 1 year deal like
Yeah, I mean, there's some risk involved in that. I mean, Buehler had a 5+ ERA last year, and you're really banking on what you saw in the postseason carrying over into this year. We'll see if that happens, but if it doesn't, like you said, it's not a huge deal. And then they topped it off with Alex Bregman
that. Yeah.
about a week ago, I guess. And I guess he's going to play second base because
Well,
Rafael
Rafael
Devers
Devers apparently
moved. Yeah,
today just boldly said at a press conference down there in Fort Myers that he has no intention of DHing or playing
first
first
base.
base. Yeah, he says he's playing third base. So
So
I guess he runs.
I don't know what Alex Cora thinks about that.
Yeah, we haven't heard what Alex Cora thinks about that, and I'm sure Rafael Devers won't mind DHing a couple days, but he
Right,
made it clear that the idea of Bregman playing third every day and Cassis playing first, that ain't happening every day.
right. And so, I mean, Bregman at this point is a high contact hitter. His power has gone down each of the past couple of years.
Yeah.
He plays in a pretty friendly, or at least he played in a pretty friendly park for right-handed hitters. He's going to again play in a friendly park for right-handed hitters. So I don't know how that's going to affect his power numbers, but he just doesn't strike out very much. He's one of the few
Yeah.
really good hitters out there who just doesn't strike out. And
So the bottom line, though, is what the Orioles have benefited from in this short window that they've had since the second half of 22 was they were playing solo against the Yankees.
Mhm.
The other two teams, Toronto and Tampa, had fallen back a little bit, I mean, has still been
Well,
okay
Tampa did win 99 games in
in
2023.
23. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They hung with us pretty good the whole way. But the Yankees are kind of back too. So now instead of just one major team, we got two major teams to win the division. And then once you start slipping to winning 86, 87 games instead of 95, 98 games, you suddenly also run the risk of being out of the dance altogether with teams like Detroit and Kansas City improving so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know what you think about the AL West, whether they can send multiple teams to the playoffs.
I
Uh,
think Texas and Houston can make the playoff.
Seattle's had a disappointing offseason. They could
Very
really use a
disappointing.
bat or two. They just didn't spend any money this
Yeah.
offseason. And I thought maybe they could dip into their starting pitching surplus, if you want to say that any team has a starting pitching surplus, and get a bat. But they mostly stood pat this offseason, and I'm not really sure the reason why.
Yeah.
Uh, but we know the issues that they have in that park building really good offenses. It's basically become course field for pitchers.
Do
You know?
you think that the Orioles, getting back to why they didn't accomplish, look, Mike Elias can spin this any way he wants, but I think we'd all agree that he didn't really find an adequate one person replacement for Corbin Burns.
Yes, we would agree.
He's making a calculation on the Santander thing that he wasn't going to be as good again, that he's
Right.
going to slow a little quicker,
Right.
and
A
and
buddy
that
was,
O'Neill is going to replace 80% of him.
yeah.
You
And so
know,
my buddy was making the point to me, like, oh, how are they going to replace Santander's 44 home runs? I said they wouldn't have been able to do that even if he came back,
yeah,
because he's not going to hit 44 home runs again.
correct,
So,
correct.
and the Orioles obviously early in the offseason made the calculation that 3 years for O'Neill plus the draft pick was better than the 5 years that Santander was asking for.
Yeah,
And I will say this, I also like the Santander signing for Toronto. They needed a bat behind Vlad in 2025. Tony can do that. He can absolutely do that. Like they needed that bat behind Vlad because this might be your only year you have left with Vlad.
the curious thing about the Orioles, both with the Burns deal and with Santander, we haven't heard them put out. And again, Mike is very tight-lipped about
Mhm,
negotiations, but you don't get the sense that they explored, because it seems like it would have leaked out for Santander's side,
mhm.
is why the Orioles didn't explore a backloaded contract with deferrals. And I know they're still tied in with Chris Davis making a boatload of
You
money
know,
for the next 15 years.
is it possible that they were just not interested in the long-term Santander business?
That's what it seems like. That's what it seems
It
like.
seems like they
But
were maybe more interested in the long-term Burns business.
yeah, yeah.
And it seems like
But
they,
I didn't hear anything about deferred money there either. You know,
no, I mean, I guess we wouldn't have.
yeah.
But uh, no,
So,
they did not replace Corbin Burns.
so
That's
my
absolutely
question was so long-winded that I didn't get the central question. Do you think the reason Mike didn't accomplish something more significant on that pitching and pivoted to Morton and Sugano was that every time he engaged with a Jerry Dipoto or an AJ Preller, they all started with, well, what can we get for Westberg, Mayo, and Basayo? What's the package we can come up with? And they just weren't in that business of wanting to deal any of those people.
yeah. So let's look back at last offseason. Kyle Bradish gets hurt at some point in January, and perhaps the Orioles accelerate their efforts to get Corbin Burns. But if you listen to Mike, that they had sort of been in touch with the Brewers all
Yeah.
offseason.
Hmm.
And that probably like roughly the deal that ended up going to Milwaukee, which was Ortiz, Hall, and a pick. Maybe like that roughly that package was sort of on the table all offseason. And then and then it was really Milwaukee that decided that they wanted to cash in on Burns before free
Yeah.
agency. That's if you believe the Orioles version.
Yeah.
And And Mike might even think that that was a little bit of an overpay because he was giving up 6 years of Ortiz, 6 years of Hall, and eventually 6 years of whatever draft pick they end up getting. But you make that deal every offseason because Corbin Burns is an ace, and if you get your hands on one, even for 1 year, you pay the piper. So this year, I would imagine that for Cease in particular, with the Padres, that they were probably trying to pull off something similar in terms of like, so Ortiz was a major leaguer, an everyday major leaguer, but he's more of a depth piece who's going to hit like seventh, maybe sixth. He's not, and he wasn't somebody who had any future as an everyday player in Baltimore, more than likely.
Correct. Correct.
Then you have Hall, who is a left-hander with electric stuff, or at least he did have electric stuff, who is probably not going to hit his upside
No,
because of injuries. And then you have a pick in the 30s, which is fairly valuable, but it might not amount to anything. It might amount to something. It's kind of nebulous to some degree. So I guess this year the equivalent package would be something like McDermott, Bradfield, and a pick. And if you're AJ Preller and you have Dylan Cease, who you think is the best pitcher on the trade market, he's probably going to want a hell of a lot more than that.
yeah, yeah.
And
That
that's
doesn't
probably
excite me at a whole heck of a lot.
and
No.
so that's probably where the Charlie Morton signing comes in.
Yeah,
That Mike felt like he was stuck on the trade market. He didn't want to give up Mayo. He didn't want to give up Basayo. And so, as you mentioned to me when the Orioles made the Morton move, the Morton move bought them a little bit of time until the trade deadline when hopefully you have Bradish back and hopefully you have more to trade from your farm system, which is not as good as it was this time last year.
no, no. Morton also is the type of guy, while he's 41 years old to start the season, and injury risk with pitchers can always be high. He does seem to show some durability, which gives me reason to be somewhat optimistic that the Orioles will get 13 or 14 wins out of Charlie Morton.
He goes to the post.
Yeah,
He always has. I think he had Tommy John surgery like 10 years ago,
yeah.
maybe. And since then, he's been one of the more durable starters in big leagues, in the
He'll
big
go
league.
to the post 27 to 29 times,
I think he's
probably.
been more like a 30 plus guy
Yeah,
for a while now. Of course, Mike has a history with him in Houston. That's really when he turned his career not around, but took his career to the next level
yeah,
with the help of the Astros. Uh, and he lives in Bradenton, and he's a 41-year-old with a family, so I'm sure he was probably only listening to a few teams. The Orioles being in Sarasota and a short flight away in Baltimore, they're probably one of the teams that he was interested in signing with if he
yep,
was going to continue pitching, and it worked out for him.
yeah. And we'll see if it's a 1 year thing or maybe it'll morph into a 2 year thing. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. We're talking about the Orioles today on this Press Box Live. Let me get in a word about the Costas Inn. The Costas Inn, some exciting news down the pike over the last month, and it's out and about. The news is that the Costas Inn is busy readying their second location, which is the old OTB restaurant that Nick's held down for a number of years over there on Timonium Road, uh, right inside the fairgrounds and the racetrack and the OTB there. They're going to be serving there 7 days a week. They will not serve steamed crabs at the new location, but everything else on the menu's there. So delicious Maryland crab cakes are there. Crab soup is there, both Maryland crab soup, cream of crab, and a whole host of specials and everything under the sun at the Costas Inn. Always fairly priced, always a family atmosphere at the Costas Inn. And of course, they're still open, 4100 North Point Boulevard, 7 days a week. Steamed crabs are available all year long. And with the weather warming up, you'll want to make your reservations at 410 477 1975. And we'll keep you posted as to when Costas Timonium is going. All right. And by the way, Costas Timonium will be a great place for spring, summer, fall parties out there at the fairgrounds. All right. Luke and I are back now talking about the Orioles and the off season. Luke, your take on the the rather rapid signing uh, of what the hell is his name? The first base, Ryan O'Hearn. Ryan O'Hearn at a not a sticker shocking 8 million plus, but a significant amount of money. So they're going to spin back out by all appearances right now. The first base duo of Ryan O'Hearn and Ryan Mountcastle, the two Ryans holding down the fort there. What kind of production do you think we can expect for the first base position?
Probably something similar that we got in the past couple of years with those two, with Mountcastle's power numbers probably going up because the left field fences are coming back in. Um, so I wouldn't expect anything too radically different. I don't know
So what are you thinking? Like 26 to
between the
28
two
home
of them.
runs between the
Yeah,
two of them,
yeah,
90 RBIs.
yeah. Like I think Mountcastle hit 30 plus as a rookie. That was in 2021 when the left field wall was where it traditionally was, and it's not going all the way back there in some spots. But I'm sure Ryan is pleased about the renovations in left field this offseason. But yeah, that's probably maybe like 30 home runs between the two of them,
Okay,
I think.
30 home runs, 90 to 100
My question to
RBIs.
you is, how does Heston Kjerstad fit in that situation, that picture, especially in right field and DH? Um, he's played a little bit of first base, I think, in his pro career, but not a lot. And then how does Kobe Mayo fit into that mix? I would say those four. I, I just don't know how the at bats are getting split. I think Mayo, if everyone stays healthy, probably starts at AAA.
I would agree with you at this point in time. I think his chances of making the team might have gone up a little tiny bit with the injury situation with Mateo,
Mhm.
probably being ready more like May the 1st or May
Right.
15th than ready at the beginning of the season. But then the complications, adding Laureano and Carlson to an already mix that was pushing Kobe toward the minors to begin with. Uh, as far as Kjerstad goes, I think that they will find a way. I don't think you're going to see Ryan Mountcastle play an awful lot like every day against right-handed pitching.
Mm.
I think there's going to be ways to get Kjerstad and O'Hearn in games
Yep.
and have that lineup with Cowser and Mullins and have the lineup loaded with some left-handers. And I think it's going to be Kjerstad's job to force his way to make a hard decision for Hyde to sit him. In other words, I think he can play himself into a much greater role than Mountcastle has if all things are equal. And that'll be up for, I think the training wheels are off of Kjerstad. I think
He's
they're going to
26
want
years
to
old.
see
He's got to play.
he's got to play and he's got to prove whether he was worthy of being a number one pick,
Yeah, and
a
it seemed
high
like he
number
was
one.
on track to maybe doing that last year, and then he got hit in the head. And that's been the story of his career, really.
Yep.
Injuries or bad luck. Yeah, the myocarditis issue, and then he had the hamstring issue after that, and then he had the concussion that cost him 2 months last year. And it's just been, and in the meantime, he's crushed AAA pitching. So he really hasn't. And it's not like you're going to keep him down to work on his defense. He's not going to be a
He's
very
not
good.
going to be a plus
It's
plus
like it's
defender.
you got him for you drafted him for his bat. He's the same player he was basically at Arkansas. So and it's time to see if the bat plays at the major league level, and hopefully he stays healthy and is able to show just that.
Yeah. Look, this club, I said at the outset, Luke, that they now face the Yankees and the Red Sox. The Orioles and Mike Elias have stacked to me a number of ifs. And this is going to be a season where they want to get the answers on whether these guys are ifs or
Mhm.
they're part of the future. If a lot of the ifs, and that's Holiday, That's Mayo,
Mhm.
that's Kerstad, that's Mullins to a certain extent,
To a certain
Rutschman.
extent, Rushman, right?
Yeah, and
Got to
Rutschman,
bounce back from his
he's
second
got to
half last
bounce
year.
back. But if they bounce back, and the chances of all of them really producing at a high level is probably not likely. But if 3 out of the 4 or 4 out of the 5 produce reasonably well, this team may be okay. They may
Yeah,
be in good
yeah, I
shape.
would agree with that. That if the ifs that you just mentioned, if they hit on 3 of 5 or 4 of 5, they're going to score
Yeah.
a ton of runs. Because there's a lot of pedigree on this team, and I don't see any reason, unless those ifs crap out, that they can't score a lot of runs this year. I mean, remember, this team was unwatchable at times last year in the second half. They were
Second half,
still
it was just really brutal
they
to
were
watch.
still top 5 in the big leagues in runs
Yeah.
scored.
Yeah.
They still scored a lot of runs last year. And I mean, if you look at their overall numbers in the second half, they weren't terrible or anything. It's just that the situational hitting got really bad.
And one of the ifs we didn't even stack up with, we mentioned Kerstad and we mentioned Mullins, we mentioned Mayo and Rutschman. One of them is Jackson Holiday.
Yeah.
Now there's a superstar in name only so far. In other words, if he really proves to be as special as people think he is, then that ups the Orioles' ceiling quite a bit.
Yes. Yes. He's one of those big ifs. And you saw flashes of it last year. You also saw flashes of him being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But I think he comes into this season with, uh, I would say, much cleaner expectations of playing a lot at second base this year, whereas they were pretty non-committal. If you remember last camp, oh, we just want to see him play in camp, and the whole thing was a little strange, and the way they managed him throughout the season was a bit strange. I think that's fair to say. Um, this year, I think as long as he doesn't crap out at camp, which there's no reason to think he will. Apparently, physically, he looks great.
Yeah.
Put on some good weight. I'm sure his dad worked with him extensively throughout the offseason. I don't think there's any reason why he can't be the opening day second baseman this year.
Ooh, give me one offensive player and one pitcher that you are anxious to see when you go down. You know,
Well, definitely on the pitching side, Felix Batista, because just the team doesn't have the same vibe when the mountain isn't in the bullpen. And I'm very curious to see how they manage him early in the
that's
season.
one of the ifs that we didn't mention too in stacking it.
Yes. So I imagine that he won't have any back-to-backs early in the season. I imagine there won't be any 2 inning outings the entire season. I think it's probably 3 outs and he's done. So I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know what his velocity is going to look like in that first outing. I'm not sure when his first Fruit League outing will even happen. So that's definitely for me on the pitching side.
Well,
That's
let
not.
me give you my pitcher, and then we'll both share our offensive
Mhm.
play. I'm really anxious to see we Tuimuka
Lugano.
Sugano. I'm really anxious to see him. The more I read about him, and just watching that one video clip of him throwing to a coach, and
Mhm.
I'm sure he wasn't trying to put everything on the ball, but the coach had the glove here, and he wasn't even like looking, and then he like threw it, and the guy just didn't even have to move his glove. And that just showed me something. I'm really anxious to see him against some major league competition.
Sure, the Orioles are anxious to see that too,
Yeah,
because as of now, that looks like a $13 million dart throw,
yeah.
which is, believe it or not, a sign of progress on the financial side. That in the past they wouldn't have had the money to make a 13
No, they would have made
million.
a 2,500, a 25, $2.5 million
Yeah,
dart throw.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who was the first when Mike's first took over in 2019 or ahead of the 2019 season? Who was that reliever that they signed that they tried to turn into like an opener and he lasted like 2 or 3 outings and he got hurt?
It wasn't Straley,
It
was
wasn't
it?
Straley. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's going
It
to bother me, but
yeah.
someone's watching this knows exactly.
Wasn't real important.
He was the first
Wonderful.
major league free agent signing that Mike made. But anyway,
He
the
was lesser than the right hit Jordan Lyles.
Nate
He
Car-
was a lesser.
was it Carnes, maybe?
Oh, wait a minute. Was it the guy they picked up, uh, Pluto? The guy they
No,
picked up from
no,
the Adam
this
Plutko
no.
from the
I'm
Indians?
going to look this up right now. Nathan Carnes. That's who it was. Nate Carnes.
That's right, Nate Carnes from
Okay.
the Oakland A's. He had
Wasn't
been
sure if it was Kearns or Carnes. Anyway.
Carnes. Yeah,
All
Nate
right.
Carnes.
So that was bothering me. I'm sorry to our viewers. That's 30 seconds we'll never get back. Um, the hitter that I want to see. How about Kobe Mayo? And you know what? I'm going to cheat a little bit. Kobe Mayo and Samuel Basallo.
Okay.
All right. Because I've seen a good bit of both of them in the minor leagues, more Mayo than Basallo. I want to see if Mayo's made any adjustments from his trial run in the major leagues when he looked a little bit overwhelmed, much like his friend Jackson Holiday. And then Basallo, I'm telling you, this kid has a chance to be really, really special.
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to seeing him, hopefully more extensively than we did last year. Hopefully he'll get a lot of at bats in spring, and we'll see him.
All right. I'm looking forward to seeing, to be honest with you, I'm really looking forward to seeing if Rutschman has sort of a different look to himself. And
Yep.
I mean, right from the start,
Mhm.
I think he let himself go last year physically and mentally. I don't think he had the focus that he's had the previous 2.5 years. We'll see. All right. That's going to do it today. We've been brought to you by the Costas Inn. Luke and I, as I mentioned, are going to chat with Josh Hauser, the head coach for Hartford Community College, next Monday around the same time, about 4 o'clock. I will have this Wednesday, I will have Jess Reback on. We're going to talk about the Ravens as they fully hit the offseason engagement. We'll find out what he thinks about the Justin Tucker situation, which is not a good look for the club, both in his behavior or the club's behavior at this point. But we'll see what he thinks about that. We'll see what he thinks about Ronnie Stanley, and we'll see if he thinks that they've got a shot at another interesting acquisition in the free agent market, one or two of them, and where he thinks they'll be with the draft
The
come
Stanley
draft time.
situation is an interesting one for me
I
because
think they need to sign him.
they might need to because
Yeah,
I don't know what better option they would have at left tackle if they let him walk.
yeah,
You know, is a franchise tag possible? Is a transition tag possible? I don't know.
yeah. That may be one of the things they work on with Lamar Jackson. Working with the club in a restructuring of his
And
contract.
Marlon Humphrey too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to do it for today. I thank Luke Jackson. Don't forget, Ross Grimsley will be with us throughout the baseball season. But Luke and I wanted to hop on. My new column is out on PressBoxOnline.com. It's on the bad news in Birdland that the Red Sox are back playing
Yeah, and I've
hardball.
got a story up as well about the Towson Tigers, Towson men's basketball, which is 13-1 in the CAA, 12-game winning streak under Pat Scarry.
Happy for Pat. Really happy for
And
Pat.
I hope that this is the year that Pat breaks through in the conference tournament. I really do.
And don't forget this later this week. Is it this week, Luke, or next week? The CIAA. It's February 25th to March the 1st.
So,
The
yeah, it's next week.
CIA down
Yeah.
at CFG Arena.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and get down there once or twice during the tournament. And the new paper with the headline on the record. Glenn Clark and I sat down and chatted with David Rubenstein, the owner of the Baltimore Orioles. That's going to do it for today. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you real soon. Don't forget to like us and share us. Bye.